And of course, most famously of all, on Saturday afternoon, a teenager in a mock military uniform walked into a grocery store in Buffalo and shot more than a dozen strangers with a rifle. No doubt you've seen accounts of this on the news. What you probably haven't seen are details about any of the 10 Americans who were murdered in that store in Buffalo. You may not even know their names, much less who they were or who they loved. Most of them were black. We know that. But beyond the way they look, not a lot has been reported about them, because the coverage hasn't been about them. Nor, in fact, has it really been about the gunman. He was an 18-year-old called Peyton Gendron. Gendron was mentally ill.
Apparently, Peyton was mentally ill, and none of the folks that were victims of that attack over the weekend have been mentioned at all. If that's the case, Tucker, how come you don't do it? Oh, I'm sorry, I cut him off. He has more time to do that because he's the honest journalist in this entire situation. Let's let him continue talking about how this manifesto and this terrorist that jumped in the middle of a city and shot folks up. Let's let Tucker continue.
Left an 180-page letter that he said would explain his motives. You've probably heard this document described as a racist manifesto, but that's not quite right. It's definitely racist, but what he wrote does not add up to a manifesto. It is not a blueprint for a new extremist political movement, much less the potential inspiration for a racist revolution. Anyone who claims that it is lying or hasn't read it. Instead, Gendron's letter is a rambling pastiche of slogans and internet memes, some of which flatly contradict one another. The document is not recognizably left-wing or right-wing. It's not really political at all. The document is crazy. It's the product of a diseased and organized mind. At one point, Gendron suggests that Fox News is part of some global conspiracy against him.
Oh, there it is. Distancing himself from the shooter's letter. Not manifesto, but his letter that's full of mental illness and a bunch of crazed thoughts that no one would ever speak of. No one says these things. He just invented it in his head. He came up with it himself. That's just the way these things work. And of course, he had some bad things to say about Fox News. So does Donald Trump. So does Mike Lindell. Do they disagree with what conservatives are always doing as far as these pushbacks with election integrity and fraud from the 2020 election? It doesn't matter. Let's talk about that BS line as far as his distancing from Fox News. So as reporters noted, the connections between the suspected shooter's screed and the replacement talking points heard on Fox News, some came to the network's defense and claimed that the suspect had explicitly attacked Fox News in his manifesto. This claim was based on an image graphic featuring headshots of various Fox News personalities. Carlson was not included, each of which was stamped with the Jewish star. The graphic was posted next to similar pieces of media that featured the employees of CNN, New York Times, NBC News, CBS News, and NPR. But the suspect did not attack Fox News for its editorial coverage. Rather, the attack was related to the anti-Semitic notion that Jewish people run all news media. It's just a bit of a detail that Tucker didn't include there in his distancing himself from, because also somehow Fox News is lumped in with CNN, NBC News, CBS News, and NPR. He didn't mention that either. It's like they're all the same. I think Tucker wants to be distanced from those networks as well. So anyway, continuing on, he made even this more egregious call throughout this entire thing. Still, let's look for the talk about the black folks that were victims in this crime. I'm waiting for Tucker to do that. Continue.
He writes like the mental patient he is, disjointed, irrational, paranoid. Now that's true, not that it makes the atrocities he committed easier to bear. If your daughter was murdered on Saturday in Buffalo, you wouldn't care why the killer did it or who he voted for.
I would care. I'd care why the killer murdered my daughter. I'd care why it happened so I can figure out maybe how we can stop this from happening again. If a shooter shoots up a school and my kid is inside, I'm trying to figure out a way we can stop this from happening. But no, people like Tucker Carlson will tell you what they believe, because he doesn't care about why this guy went and murdered all these folks. He doesn't care because he knows why he did it and he knows what he's been inspired by. But he's gonna tell you that you also don't care. Before we go into more of this nonsense, Waz, I feel like I've kept you on the sidelines waiting for this. What are your thoughts on these first few thoughts this idiot had?
It's obviously setting up a cut tail, cut bait and run situation here. That's obvious, and you understand why. He's got the most popular show on the network. He's making millions of dollars for it. He doesn't want to lose this job, and he doesn't want to paint a picture of him doing a job that is toxic and responsible for killing people. That's how you end up getting sued. That's how you lose your job. So he's gonna defend his right to spew hate and be, a problem for our country overall, especially as it pertains to the discourse politically. So yeah, a guy who's making millions of dollars to be, a hate monger, I'm not surprised that he's defending his right to do such a thing.
And the thing is, he could continue to spew his hate, which I would prefer that he not. He could continue to spew his hate after saying, we talk about this replacement stuff and we talk about how voters are being pushed out by these non-voters, which all of it is not true. But maybe that's the reason why he can't say, but we don't want to inspire crime and violence and murderers like this guy. So in the future, we're gonna look to not be so violent and have our rhetoric push people to this degree, because it's pretty obvious the things that he espoused, maybe he misinterpreted what I really wanted to say. And this is what I really wanted to say. But he won't say that because what he said is what he means. And what the shooter took from that same narrative is exactly what Tucker Carlson means. So remember, he was talking about how there's no left, no right here. But he does want to specifically point out, this back to Tucker, was to point out how bad the left is, specifically the Democratic Party. Here's more.
So what is hate speech? Well, it's speech that our leaders hate. So because a mentally ill teenager murdered strangers, you cannot be allowed to express your political views out loud. That's what they're telling you. That's what they've wanted to tell you for a long time. But Saturday's massacre gives them a pretext, a justification.
Pretext to justification. Remember that line he just said. Hate speech is just speech that our leaders hate. Is that applied to all leaders? Does that apply to Republicans? Does that apply to Mitch McConnell when he didn't like that people were protesting what's eventually going to be what the Supreme Court decision is on Roe versus Wade? Because he told us the story's not about what they're deciding. The story is about this leaked draft memo. It seems like he hates the speech that we have. Is that hate speech? Come on, man. It doesn't have to make sense, but the wagons were circled at Fox News. One more clip was, these are a few other personalities here that are trying to protect their backs from this fallout.
Yet even when Buffalo authorities confirmed that the Buffalo killer was a lone wolf, the gonzo journalists at Rolling Stone say, no. There are accomplices here, the Republicans. It's so weak. I don't even want to talk about it tonight because it's so predictable. It's so lame. Because the real accomplices are in the media that are propping up an administration that has brought this country to its knees with policies making American families poorer every single day. And
the Buffalo shooter isn't a lone wolf, he's a mainstream Republican. And there you go. The goal is to conflate white supremacists with the Republican Party. This is done to shame Republican voters and galvanize Democrat voters.
Again, all they're thinking about is voters, and also making sure that they don't connect these racists and these white nationalists with the Republican Party. Hey, I've got news for you guys. White nationalists and racists associate themselves with the Republican Party. Are they voting with Democrats? Are they calling themselves libs? No, they're calling themselves Republicans and conservatives and MAGA. That's what they're calling themselves. So don't ask anyone else. Don't blame the media and don't blame Democrats. Don't blame the libs. Blame the people that said, hey, I'm a card-carrying Republican and my child will be too, because F those black people, F those minorities, and F those immigrants that are coming into our country and trying to take over my true rightful stance here in my country. Last thoughts was?
Yeah, I don't know how you can run away from replacement theory specifically because it's so associated with Tucker Carlson and his program. Like, we can get into how illegitimate the quote unquote theory is, right? And I say this all the time. When the Greeks, the Italians, the Polish, the Jews, the Irishmen, when they came here, nobody wanted their asses and everybody was pissed off about it. And eventually they just got subsumed into whiteness, right? So that nobody got replaced. We just added more people to the white ledger and everything was fine and we continue to be all hunky dory. So this idea that people will be replaced when we've been adding immigrants to this country from the very beginning is just ridiculous. So that's just, debunking Tucker Carlson's replacement theory, but yeah, they obviously know they're wrong-footed here because again, this isn't some theory that's existed for hundreds of years. It's not like, Descartes actually like introduced this to something, right? It's like it literally was born and raised on Fox News's airwaves. And so the idea that they would try to run from it is hilarious.
Well, they'll go right back to it next week and say that that's not what they're doing because again, it's the calling card. They have not much else to say. That's the thing. It's fear and scare tactics to make sure that their voters come back out and do that. Has nothing to do with actual discourse when it comes to reality in the country because they don't care about those folks that died. Let's keep it real.